We have our friend Brian's 1978 Corvette. Now, I've worked on plenty of them. I've driven them, but I've never owned one. Man, this thing is incredible, Dave.
John, this is not just any Corvette. This is an Indianapolis 500 pace car, one of only 6,000 made, and it's identical to the Corvette that led Tom Sneva and 32 other cars down to the green flag in 1978. This is so cool.
And I'll tell you, this thing was loaded with technology in 1978. What a perfect car we can use to compare old technology with new technology. Join us on Tech Garage as we do just that. Welcome to the high-tech studios of Tech Garage. And Dave, high-tech's the word, man. We like to look at the evolution of the parts, and our audience does as well, man. Cars have evolved, my friend.
In such a short time. They've only been around for 120 years, and we've gone from the first cars, the Benz going a few miles an hour, and now we got cars going 250 miles an hour. Road cars.
Yeah, massive technology that made that happen, but here's kind of a cool example, Dave. Look at this mess, man. 1978, I couldn't even imagine being back then. I mean, you got a 350 engine on there, pushing, what, 185 horsepower? If you got the good one, you got 220, buddy. You are really on top of your game. What about the new one, my man?
The new one's amazing. Now, remember, the Corvette that we have is from 1978. 1977 was the first time somebody qualified at 200 miles an hour at Indianapolis. Tom Sneva did it. Well, guess what? A stock Corvette today goes 194, almost the speed of an Indy car from back in the 70s here. Makes 495 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. So that can really get it. And that's just right off the showroom floor.
Amazing. And you know, I was souping up my car going to the track, man. I got that thing to 14s. I thought I was flying, Dave, in 1978. Look at the Corvette's quarter mile at 15.2 at 95 miles an hour. Hang on, brother.
That was moving. Now you can do the quarter mile in 11.2 seconds in a stock Corvette. 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. That'll put you back in the seat.
But there's a price to pay for that, Dave. I could have got that Corvette for about 10 grand back in 78. Not the case today, my man.
In fairness, though, that was a lot of money back in 1978.
I guess you're right, yeah.
But it's a lot of money now, too. The coupe is $71,000. And if you want the convertible, almost $79,000.
And that's a lot of money. But I'll tell you what, technology has changed immensely. Let's talk about ignition systems, Dave. Back in the day, you're familiar with that.
Yeah, you got it. We had points, and then went from there to electronic ignition, and then to a distributor with an electronic pickup here.
Yeah, that was complex. And then we had a distributor on those Corvettes. Everybody remembers the old OptiSpark up under the water pump. What a disaster that was. Then we went to distributor-less ignition systems. Love that. You don't have any moving parts. The distributor and coils were remote. We're down to coil on plug now, Dave. I couldn't even imagine going from this to that mess and having to work on it.
I cannot wait to see what is under here, man.
Oh, it's the Quadrajet. 4 barrels on that carburetor, man.
Best technology in the world right here, man. 70s technology.
Man, I can't imagine it getting any more complex than that.
John, we talked about spark, and of course an internal combustion engine needs spark, it needs fuel, and it needs air. And for 50 years, this is the way the air and the fuel were mixed. This is a carburetor, and of course you know it from the old days. And when you hit the throttle here, it opens the butterflies and it dumps in the fuel and the air, and the mixture, not all that precise, but computers came along, and that's when we got to the throttle body. It's essentially a carburetor with a computerized injector on it. So now, when you hit the throttle, the computer knows exactly how much fuel's going in, so it matches that with the air, and you've got a perfect mixture.
Absolutely. Then we did away with those altogether. As good as they got, well, no, we went to direct injection and we went to multi-port injection. Let's start with multi-port injection. You can see the fuel rail right here, and then we put an injector in every one of the cylinders, but we put them on top of the intake valve. So we're at the engine's mercy of vacuum kind of when the intake valve opened to get it down in there. But boy, we were precise. We were right on top of it. We thought we were doing great. Then we went to direct injection. Now, direct injection goes right in the cylinder. Now, you think about that. You have about 100 PSI of combustion, so we have to overcome that with pressure. So we take a fuel pump from the system, we bring about 40 up to the mechanical fuel pump, and then this thing pumps 3,000 PSI in that system, man. That's a gasoline laser cutter. Boy, that's a far cry from that junk back in 1978.
All right, thanks, man. Can you believe the fuel filter actually goes inside the carburetor on this thing?
It's so crazy complex.
It has to be complex. It's putting through 3 pounds per square inch of pressure. Huge.
It's got to be because it's sucking in so much air. We got to push the fuel in now. And speaking of that, look at this. Check out this ignition, man. It's computer controlled. There's so much electricity going on in there from that computer. We have to have this electricity shield.
Whoa, that's far out. Can you imagine if a whole car was computerized?
Man, that car would be as big as a house.
Well, Dave, computers have come a long way. We went from an ECM, engine control module, to a powertrain control module, which controlled the engine and the transmission, to a vehicle control module that controlled the whole vehicle, to individual modules. You could have 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, Dave. Woo, there's some computers on these cars today.
That is a lot of CMs right there.
But it all started in 1984 with this guy here, Onboard Diagnostics 1.
Yep, OBD1. And OBD2 is what's in cars these days. This was what started it all, though. Here's the computer itself, and then this is called the PROM. This card inside is the programmable read-only memory card. So we called it the PROM. The computer would be the same across a bunch of different models. So if you had a Cadillac Catera or a Chevy Cavalier, it had the same computer, but the PROM is what made the difference. If the car had different functions, maybe different tire size or different engine, everything was in there. And of course, you've heard about chipping your car. You get a hyper chip to make your car perform better. That was done through a PROM.
Absolutely. And then we went to 1996, Onboard Diagnostics 2. Well, there's no hole in this one because you cannot access it. Double EEPROM, read only and write. They program them. That's why you take your car into a shop and it reprograms it. Man, that's all they have today. And then now we went to CAN bus systems, Dave. Man, there could be 70, 80, 90, 100 different computers. Driver's door modules, VAT system modules, security modules, seatbelt modules, all the different computers, kind of like the networks of computers today when they're just kind of talking to each other around the world. So pretty crazy. Computers have come a long way.
Now, electronic ignition is cool, but check this out. Hot air coming off the manifold goes into the engine. Hot air's got to be better, man. Give you more power, gets rid of all the emissions issues, too.
Nice. That saves the trees. I love trees.
I saw one of these cars on chips last night. Groovy.
And that was a good show. Too many commercials.
Yeah, you think there'll be commercials in the future?
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by RockAuto.com. All the parts your car will ever need.
Well, welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. And we're making it through the evolution of old to new technology, and we love it, Dave. And evolution, though, it's like I seen you before on some old television show or something. I'm not really getting this.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, anyway. Intakes, they come a long way, Dave. We started with that.
Yep, this is an air cleaner that would go on top of your carburetor. And of course, back in the muscle car days, you'd have the cool logos on there, Chevy Performance or something like that. And it's still cool to see under the old muscle car hoods and stuff like that, but this is a little more typical.
Yeah, and then they went to multi-port injection. They kind of moved it away. They thought that was pretty good. We won't get the engine compartment heat, but they put all these ribs and everything and all the restrictions and mass airflow sensors, and didn't really work too well. To our engineers decided, hey, cold air is dense air, bigger bang, more fuel, more performance.
Genius.
Exactly. So a cold air intake, and its really premise is to get it away from the engine. We try to get it way out there. We kind of get in an fender well somewhere where we're getting cold air in, no restrictions, no problems, and bam, bigger bang. Then we went to the dual plenum, and you can see this animation here where it actually switches from long runners to short runners depending on the engine's driving capabilities and what you're doing, and boy, it's optimal today. Not like it was back in the 70s.
Wow, imagine how much air we can get into this new high-flow air filter. It's going to probably make 200 horsepower.
Man, I wish I had that air filter on my mom's Pinto.
Man, we're getting all this air in. Good thing we have this groovy exhaust. We can get all the power out, too.
Yeah, and it's clean exhaust. I love clean exhaust.
Well, this tour of evolution has been exhausting.
Exhaust, you say, John? Well, let's look at the typical muffler here from back in the old days here. Check out all the baffles, all the curves and everything in there. Yeah, it made the engine quiet, but everything was so restricted, all the airflow in there, if you didn't get any performance. You had a quiet car, but you hit the gas and nothing really happened.
Exactly. You can't get it out. You can't get it in on the next stroke. You're losing performance. And look at this, Dave. This is crazy. You got an old pipe there versus the new pipe. They finally figured out, hey, if we make it bigger, maybe a little more will come out.
Another stroke of genius.
Yeah. And the mufflers, boy, they've changed too. Look at that. You go right through that there. Cherry bomb straight through, no restrictions, insulation here. We're getting it out, we're getting it in. Dave, last but not least, diagnostics have changed immensely, man. I mean, look at the flow chart, man. We had to have a DVOM, we had to do all kinds of work. It took hours, not the case in the 70s, Dave.
Technicians today are computer whizzes because cars are basically rolling computers. Back in the 70s, you had a squeal or any kind of tick, any kind of rattle. One solution, just crank it up. Throw in the 8-track and listen to your music heading down the highway.
Yeah, no problem. Gotta love the 70s.
We are at the pinnacle of civilization. The technology in this automobile is unbelievable.
I love the 70s.
Yeah, me too. Hey, I'm gonna help Tom find some parts.
3, 2, 1, go. Go, Dave.
Oh, the technology, Tom, in these cars is amazing. I mean, look at this schematic right here. Can you believe there's 5 different elements in the loop here, all connected together electrically?
I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to work on cars with all this advanced technology.
I think we say goodbye in the 80s when it comes to working on cars. It's crazy. Now look at the technology we have here. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, the distributors keep getting more and more fancy. You got the trusty points, but you got this centrifugal advanced stuff, the little high-tech springs that shoot these weights out. You have to get a degree in just distributors to understand that.
You could replace it with something like that, and the coil's right on the plug there.
Really?
Maybe. I don't know. It's just an idea I had.
Have you patented it yet? Or?
I don't think it's going to catch on. I don't think it's a big deal.
I don't either.
Yeah, so carburetors there, those are complicated.
Yeah, even the trusty carburetor, they're putting like thermostats on the chokes and it's in vacuum lines, and how are you going to keep up with that? I don't know.
What if you could take the fuel and inject it right into the cylinder, like with something like that?
Each cylinder would get one of these? Or?
Every cylinder maybe gets one, and it injects it right in there.
What would you call it?
Fuel squirter?
Did you patent this?
No, I don't think anybody's going to care. I don't think it's a big deal.
I don't either.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many parts available these days. And look at this, the stack of catalogs. It's endless. And you can find any part you want.
Yeah, a few hours, few days, you can find what you need there. And we've got everything organized, all the parts there, labeled by suspension and brakes and stuff we haven't sorted yet.
Yeah, if we don't have them here in the parts room, you can find them here in the trusty catalog. It'll take you just a few weeks to get the parts your car needs. Now, what if we could get all this information to folks at home? Maybe they have a big party line, everybody's on, and they can call for parts like this.
So everybody on the party line interacts with each other, and they're experts in their own catalog, and they can tell you what's on their shelves. And
yeah, and the only thing I could see that's complicated is there'd be this web of wires all over the place, like a worldwide web of just a mess of stuff. So I don't know how you can pull that off.
Yeah, what would you call it?
I don't know. Well, while we're thinking about that, we're going to go to commercial. This one from Braniff Airways. We'll be right back with more Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com. What does that mean? Welcome to the Keep It or Crush It segment here on Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. You notice anything missing, John?
Yeah, the engine's missing, Dave, and I don't know if you got enough horsepower to do the job.
I don't think I'm going to be enough. Good thing we have this new engine from GPT over there.
And we do. We have a Go Powertrain engine here, and you guys can see it's coming together really, really well. We'll talk about the accessories later, and we're going fuel injected with the Sniper, Dave. Gotta love it, man.
I love it, and we got a new intake there that's going to give us more horsepower and better acceleration, which is great.
You got that right. But before we jump on this, let's turn our attention to the windshield. You know, a lot of people don't get to see windshields installed, so we're going to go ahead and go through the process. We called our buddies over at Tommy's Auto Glass, local here, and they take care of our college for us. And Jonathan Fuquay hooked us up with the windshield, and Gary Stevens, man, an incredible installer with Benjamin, did the job, and just walk through the process.
It wasn't too tough for him anyway. First thing you got to do is remove the windshield wiper arms. Those things have been on there for about 40 years, so it took a little doing. Got a little pick in there to pry the little clips, and they came off.
Yeah, and we removed the cowling, Dave. We didn't have to, but they went ahead and removed the cowling, so we could just clean it up. You know, it's an old truck, get it all cleaned up, and it gave us better access to the trim. It was just an easier way to do it.
And that trim, there's a lock seal around there, so the molding around there was holding the windshield in, and it's brittle, it's old. The seals are the first thing to go, so we knew we were going to throw that out. We didn't have to be too gingerly with it.
Yeah, and then the gasket that actually is around the windshield, we went and cut that all the way around. They gave it a good oomph around there. Even Benjamin got a little shot at it, and he got it cut out, and basically by then it was ready to take the windshield out.
You got it, and again, we're not really saving this glass, so we didn't have to be too careful, but it is glass, so you have to be careful enough, able to push that out with no problem.
Yeah, then when it cleaned around there, I mean, once again, an old pickup truck, we had some debris, not a lot of rust, I was surprised, but went ahead and cleaned it, took a little cookie die grinder, went around and made sure it was all good before we put the new one in, even though we're not gluing it.
And as with anything, with an automobile, take your time, especially with a classic, and that's exactly what we did. Time to prime the frame, just a coat of primer around there to get it ready to accept the molding in the windshield there.
Yep, and then the new seal went in there, the gasket, the hook lip was on the back side, started in the center, they worked their way around, so when they got to the end, bam, you have a beautiful cut right in the middle.
New windshield went in, a locking strip to hold it in, and there's your new windshield.
Bam, just that easy, you know, and that's nice. It really improved the truck, but, you know, I'm more impressed with this engine here. Turn our attention to the engine. We went ahead and did the accessories, and I'll tell you, if you're gonna do accessories, take pictures, take pictures, take pictures. Man, these old engines, Dave, have a ton of brackets and they're all interlocking. Not a pretty sight.
Next item for removal, the power steering pulley. There's a special pulling tool for that. You can get that at rockauto.com.
And same thing for the harmonic balancer. Special puller, impact, bam, knocked it off, no worries.
The water pump went on next, and he had to apply some Teflon to the threads to make sure that water didn't wick out through the threads. The water pump could leak.
Yeah, and because we're using the Holley Sniper system, man, we went ahead and blocked off the actual fuel pump where it originally is. 4 bolts, boom, that was easy.
Fuel pump delete there. Intake manifold, that's from our friends at Wyand. That's a Street Warrior. Again, they say more horsepower, better acceleration. Why not? Throw that on there.
Flipped it over, oil pan, glued the gaskets. They're corked, so we'll go back and re-torque them. Just a normal build, man.
AC compressor goes on and we're good to go, John.
Yeah, Dave, now it's time to prime the engine with the oil. We don't want to do a dry start. We want to make sure all this precision GPT powertrain is going to be top notch when we get it started. So if you look at the distributor right there, we're just going to kind of mimic that with the little tooth that goes down on a shaft that's driven down there on the oil pump. I'm going to stick that down in. We got this at rockauto.com, really cool. You can use a distributor shaft at home too. And then I'm going to hit it with a drill, Dave, and you got a gauge. What are we looking for?
We're looking for about 25 PSI. And we have achieved 25 plus PSI. Perfect.
All right, we'll go ahead and run it for a while and lubricate all the bearings. Great thing to do so you don't have a dry start. We'll put this joker in this truck next week. You don't want to miss it. Hopefully this thing will be running by next week.
It better be running next week or it's going to be a lousy show.
It will.
All right, coming up next, we've got a little bit of garage ed. We're going to be talking refrigerants. It's a lot cooler than you think. Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by RockAuto.com. All the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, we made it to the Garage Ed segment, and in this one, we're going to talk about air-conditioned refrigerants and air-conditioned oils. That's an important part. And I think back to when I was driving, we had R12. We used to call it Freon. That stuff was damaging because it had chlorofluorocarbons in it, and it was bad for the atmosphere, so boom, it's gone. Went to 134 here, this 134A. We're still using that today, but we're basically switching over right now to the R1234YF. This is the new refrigerant. Just as important as the refrigerant, though, Josh, is the oil, man. Talk about the oil.
The oil's definitely important. And on the new stuff, most of it takes PAG oil. But what people don't realize is, just like with a vehicle, you have 0W20 for some engines, 5W30 for other engines. You don't want to put 5W30 in a 0W20 because the tolerances, you need to be able to get that 0W20 in. Same thing's true with the PAG oil, polyalkylene glycol. You have PAG 46, PAG 100, PAG 150, all those are different viscosities, and each one of those compressors are designed differently, so you need to check with your manufacturer. Speaking of that, if you have a hybrid or an electric, you definitely don't want to use PAG oil because it is actually conductive. They make something called POE oil, which is polyester oil, and that is non-conductive, and that's what you want to put in your vehicle that's a hybrid or electric. Now, speaking of oils and specifications, when you look them up, you still want to find out exactly how much oil that's going to take when you replace that component. But you have to be careful because you might find, well, 11 ounces. You don't want to pour 11 ounces in there because that's total system capacity.
Right.
Each component on there has a specification for how much oil it has.
It sure does. And the oil is important, and it actually lubricates the compressor. The refrigerant carries it around, so you have to have it. You can see this graphic right here, Josh. You set me up perfect. 1 ounce of oil in the condenser. The accumulator has 2 ounces. It sits there when the system's off, and each one of those components have a little bit of oil in it. That's important to make that measurement. Make sure whatever you take out, put back in, or follow those manufacturer specifications. Now on the refrigerant side, you can see up there, you may find it on your accumulator, you may find it actually on the firewall of the car, you may find it up on the bulkhead, but it may be somewhere on there. If it's not, check your service manual. Always follow the manufacturer specifications. And Josh, as far as recharging a system, how do the pros do it?
Well, the pros use a recovery machine. You don't want to vent this stuff into the atmosphere, so when the pros take it into the machine, they can dispose of it properly.
Yeah, that brings us to our email question. We got Brian here wrote in, and he said, are those AC recharge cans you buy at the store worth it? Now, I think they're graded to tight. You can put some refrigerant in there, but boy, here at Tech Garage, we're following the manufacturer specification. Josh, you just laid it out. I mean, oil is just as important, that has oil in it. The type of refrigerant is just as important, that has refrigerant in it. What's your take on the can?
Sometimes the cans actually have additives in there that you actually don't want in your system. And a lot of people think, well, it's not blowing cold like it used to. Must be low in refrigerant. So they go get one of these cans, they fill it up. This one looks nice. It has a gauge. It's just specifically for the low side. But if you only have a low side gauge, that only tells you one side of the problem.
Yeah, you know, refrigerants, oils, the AC systems are just as complex as any other system on the car. It's not like it used to be in the 70s.
So I think in most cases you'll be thrown free, and I don't see any reason they're ever going to mandate seatbelts, Jimmy. Thanks for writing in. You sent a self-addressed stamped envelope, so you're going to get a free autograph photo from everyone here at Tech Garage.
You know, we made it through the 70s, but we'll be back next week with more Tech Garage brought to you by Rock Auto.
.com.
Production assistance provided by Chipola College in Marianna, Florida. Chipola was founded in 1947, and it was recently ranked among the top 3 community colleges in the United States.